Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. So I am Dr. Marina Muhammad Elias Muhammad, your biology lecturer, and under me you will be learning about topic 9, taxonomy, systematic and phylogeny. Alright, when you're referring to the biology textbook, this topic is actually under the chapter 19, Taxonomy, Systematic and Phylogeny. So please refer your textbook under chapter 19. Alright, these are the outlines under the topic 9. 9.1, we will learning about the systematic biology. 9.2, the three domain system, and 9.3 about phylogeny. Alright students, we hope that at the end of this video lecture, you will be able to first differentiate between taxonomy, classification, and systematic biology. Number 2, we hope that you can reconstruct the level of the linear classification hierarchy. And number 3, we hope that you can identify the genus and species of an organism from its scientific name. Alright, before I proceed to my lecture, I would like to ask you, what are the roles and products of systematic in modern biology? So might be some of you think about identification or documentation. Yes, systematic identify and document Earth biodiversity and organize this information in a form that can be utilized by others. The second one, systematic, is the study of the history of life on Earth. So once we know what organisms exist, so we can ask questions about how they came to be as today. This is about an evolutionary lineage, for example. Alright, now we proceed to our first subtopic, 9.1, systematic biology. And under this subtopic, you can read here the learning outcomes that we hope all the students can achieve. Alright, student, let's learn some terms under the field of taxonomy. So the first one is taxonomy. So when we refer to the word from Greek words, taxo means arrange or classify. Nomos means usage or law. It is a branch of biology that identifies, names, and organizes biodiversity into related categories. Taxon. In plural, we say taxa. It is a group of one or more population of an organism or organisms seen by taxonomists to form a unit. So what is taxonomist? Taxonomist is a biologist or scientist that groups organisms into categories. So taxonomists can organize species into classification by studying the morphological, behavioral, genetic, and also biochemical characteristic of organism. And what is classification? Classification is the process of arrangement of animals and plants in taxonomic groups according to their observed similarities. So every organism is classified on a hierarchical system. And now we are referring to 7 basic groups in scientific classification system, which are, first one, kingdom, second one, phylum, and then, yes, class, order, family, genus, and species. Alright, students. Now we learn a little bit about organism. classifying organism. So when you're referring to the page 338 in your meta textbook, you can see under figure 19.1, there are pictures of archaea, bacteria, plant, fungi, invertebrate animal, and vertebrate animal. So here, what you can see is the photos of animals that mostly can be found in Africa. So can you name what is this animal? Yes, correct. This is giraffe. Giraffe. This is the African elephants. This one is a zebra. Also, you can find it in Africa. And this is the antelope. And this one is a, yes, it's a crane. We call it gray crowned crane. It can be found in Kenya. And this one is a lioness. All right. And this one is a little bit tricky. This is not a wild boar, but this is a warthog. Okay. This is the hyena. This one, yes, the ostrich. Actually, it's come from Africa also. And this one is a buffalo. Buffalo. All right, comes from Africa also. African buffalo. Okay, let's learn a little bit about history of taxonomy. So might be some of us have heard the name of Aristotle. Aristotle was called the father of science. He grouped the types of creatures according to their similarities. And then he divided each of these main groups into 3 smaller groups. For example, the animal subgroups under smaller groups, land, water, or which live in air. So under plant subgroups, he divided into whether the plant is small, medium size, or large size. All right, students, before this I mentioned about Aristotle, and Aristotle have sorted organisms into groups such as horses, birds, and ox based on shared traits or similar features. But today taxonomies classify organisms into natural groups based on their evolutionary history by constructing a phylogeny or evolutionary family tree. And this you can see example of the phylogeny tree. Okay, and after Aristotle, taxonomist uses physical traits, but this method proven to be problematic. So you can refer to the meta textbook page 338, which mention about this method proved to be problematic. However, because many features of organism were similar, not because they shared a common ancestor, but because of convergent evolution. For example, birds, bats, and beetles, all of which have wings, are profoundly different in many other ways. So they have wings to fly, but actually they are not under a same group of animals. This is a photo of Carolus Linnaeus, who developed the system of binomial nomenclature, which names organisms using a 2-part Latin name. He is a father of modern taxonomy. So when we're referring to the binomial nomenclature, the first word is the genus name, and the second word is the specific epithet, which refers to one species within its genus. And both names are italicized when typed or underlined when written by hand. Each species is referred by the full binomial name, means that you have to refer the genus and species. Genus name, however, can be used alone to refer to a group of related species. For example, Musa species. Musa species is actually comes from a banana plants group. Alright, this slide showing two different species of lily. So if you can see here, the first name, the first word, Lilium, is referring to the genus. Lilium, genus. So the second word is referring to the species. So this one, Lilium canadens, and this species is Lilium bulbiferum. So if you can notice here that the scientific name of these two species written in italic. Okay. Scientific names are derived in number of ways. So some scientific names are descriptive, means that presenting observation about the characteristic of something. For example, here you can see this a red maple tree. So Acer means maple, rubrum means red. So this scientific name of the plant is Acer rubrum. So some of the scientific names can include geographical description. For example, here, the alligator mississippiensis, which named for the Mississippi River region of the North America. And some of the scientific names can include eponyms, which means name of person. For example, here, the Strigophilus Gary Larsoni, named after the cartoonist of Gary Larson. And many of scientific names are derived from mythical characters. For example, this beautiful iris flower, it named Iris versicolor. So Iris versicolor referring to the goddess of the rainbow. Scientists use Latin rather than common names. So why we use Latin? So firstly, common names varies from country to country, and it makes us difficult to refer to a very specific animal because the language are different. And then secondly, same language but different common names to describe the same organism. For example here, some of the country use puma, cougar or panther, but all of these names are referring to one species, puma concolor. And then the third one, same common name is sometimes given to different organism. Here you can refer to the list in the table. For example, Asterina gibosa, it is referring to the marine species, the cushion star, but it also can referring to a fungus. So students, Latin is actually a universal language for scientific binomial names. And if you want to read more about using Latin in scientific words, scientific names, then you can click here and then you can get more information in this link. Modern taxonomists use the following classification. You can start from the domain, which is the higher taxonomy category. So domain is one or more kingdoms. Then kingdom is one or more phyla. And phyla is one or more classes. And then classes is one or more orders. Order, one or more families. And families, one or more genera. and genus is one or more species, and then the last one is the species. Or you can vice versa, from species to domain. Today, taxonomies use nested hierarchical set of categories to classifying organism. Organism in the same domain, for example here eukarya, have general traits in common, whereas those in the same species, for example mus musculus, have quite specific traits in common. What is trait? A trait is particular characteristic. Traits are essentially physical characteristics. If you can referring to this figure, for example, the kingdom Animalia includes all the animals. Within the kingdom Animalia is the phylum Chordata, which referring to the animals that have spinal cords. So, under the phylum Chordata is the class Mammalia, and for example here class Amphibia. Class Mammalia, which referring to the mammals that have mammary glands, whereas the class Amphibia referring to the animals that have ability to exploit both aquatic and terrestrial habitat. So several species can share the same genus. For example, here they're showing three boxes, small boxes here, and then this bigger box is actually referring to genus, and then the small boxes referring to the species. And many genera, for example here showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes of genus. So many genera can share the same family. For example here family Muridae. And then when you're referring to this box, I'm showing you here, for example, little box A, B, C, D, and E. So these little boxes referring to the species. Here you can see that the species A, B, and C, D, and E, which A related to B, but not very related to C. But when you're referring to the species B, you're referring to the relationship or related to the species A and C. But B is more related to A compared to species C. And if you are referring to B, here B and D, it's quite far of relationship. So B is not related to D and E, but D is quite, it's more related to E. Alright students, so organisms in the same domain have general characteristics in common, whereas members of a species share very specific characteristics. How many of you have heard about DNA barcoding? So DNA barcoding is a method of species identification using a short section of DNA from a specific gene or genes. So this method, it compares a short fragment of DNA sequence from an unknown organism to a large database of sequences from known organisms. DNA barcoding does not always get the taxonomy correct. DNA barcoding has been criticized as being too simplistic, but it is a powerful way to catalog a portion of the world's biodiversity. And then, thank you guys. All the best.